Today for Blood on the River, Lesson 2, we're going to be reading chapters 2 and 3. And while you're reading and listening to chapters 2 and 3, you need to take a list of everything you notice and some things that you wonder. Blood on the River, chapter 2. Remember, at the beginning of each chapter of this book is an epigraph. Epigraphs give us a little bit of background information, and they frame the whole chapter. So whatever the epigraph is about is what the whole chapter is going to be about. And this author has chosen to use primary sources for every epigraph. That means at the beginning of every chapter, we're going to read something that was really written in 1606 or around that era. The epigraph reads, "On Saturday, the 20th of December, in the year 1606, the fleet fell from London." And fleet, they're talking about a ship fleet. This is from Master George Percy, from observations gathered out of a discourse of the plantation of the Southern colony in Virginia. So this is Samuel Collier. Some would say I'm lucky. Others would say I'm doomed. I escaped the gallows. That's why I'm lucky. Remember, he had stolen a locket. Or did he steal it anyway? That's to be determined. The magistrate mumbled something about having a son my age and pulled me out of my dark jail cell after just 2 days and marched me down to the orphanage. His name's Samuel Collier, age 11, son of dead peasants. Can you take him? He asked Reverend Hunt when he opened the orphanage door. The Reverend nodded to the magistrate and showed me to my bed in a row of neatly made beds. Reverend Hunt is a tall, quiet man with broad shoulders and more patience than anyone I have ever known. He tells me I have a lot to learn about right and wrong. It was wrong to steal the locket, he says. It was no longer yours. It belonged to the pawn shop owner. He says I need to make decisions based on love, not on anger. I loved my mum and wanted her locket back, so I was acting out of love, I say. He just shakes his head. The locket would not have brought your mother back, he says. I know he's right, and I know the real reason I stole it is that I was angry at the bosses at the poorhouse, angry at our landlord, angry at the world. But how can I make decisions based on love when there is no one left to love? The orphanage was not a bad place, better than sleeping on the streets. Maybe if I'd been less of a danger to the other boys, they'd have let me stay. But the boys started calling me thief and jail rat, and I knew only one way to settle the argument: with my fists. Colin's nose spurting bright red blood was quite an accomplishment. But I think Richard's tooth only fell out because it was already loose when I punched him. As for being doomed, if I am doomed, then so is Richard. We are the 2 boys Reverend Hunt decided to bring along with him on his journey to the New World. Richard is to be the Reverend's servant, and I'm to serve a man called Captain John Smith. It is early on a December morning as we walk from the orphanage to the docks. Fog hangs thick and cold. It makes the stone houses drip and the wattle and daub houses look soggy. Richard carries Reverend Hunt's satchel, heavy with books and the Bible and some extra clothes. My new shoes clomp on the cobblestones. The shoes are too big, passed on from an older boy who died at the orphanage last month, but Reverend Hunt says I can't go barefoot in the New World. The New World. The boys, Colin and the others, think we will die there. They even begged Reverend Hunt not to go. The Reverend explained to them the importance of the mission. King James has granted a charter to the Virginia Company of London to send men to the New World, to Virginia. The men will explore for gold, silver, and jewels, and for a new passage to the Orient, and they'll cut down New World trees and send back to England to build English houses, all to make a big profit for the investors of the Virginia Company. But the real importance, Reverend Hunt says, is to bring the good news of Christ to the native people who live in Virginia. He says we'll also look for survivors from the Roanoke colony, the settlers who went to Virginia with Sir Walter Raleigh over 20 years ago. That is why Reverend Hunt wants to go. But I want to go for the gold. They say it washes up on shore with every tide. We reach the harbor. The sky is gray with morning light, and the place is alive with commotion. Hawkers call out their wares, and I smell fresh baked bread. Sailors pull on ropes and pulleys, lifting barrels to swing from each ship's arm so that they can be loaded on board. Officers shout orders, and sailors march up the gangways carrying loads on their shoulders. Reverend Hunt points out the three ships that will be ours. Their hulls and scaffolding are newly painted in rich blue, deep maroon, and pale yellow. He says the largest one is the Susan Constant. Next in size is the Godspeed, and the smallest, a pinnace, is the Discovery. They bob next to the docks, and I watch as crates of chickens are carried on board. I scan the throng of men milling around the docks. There are hordes of gentlemen dressed in velvet and silk, sailors in their wide-legged slops, and one very dirty boy selling eels. I wonder where he is, this Captain John Smith. Reverend Hunt says he's a soldier, an officer, not a ship's captain, but a captain in the English military. And he is a commoner, a yeoman, so I don't look for him among the gentlemen. I am to be Captain Smith's page, which means I'm supposed to serve him and learn from him. I don't argue with the Reverend Hunt, but inside I scoff at the idea. Me, an apprentice to an officer? I've never been teachable in my life, except my mum teaching me how to read. That I sat still for. But my father tried to teach me smithing, and when I ruined a piece of iron, out came his fists. I won't have some man I hardly know trying to beat sense into me. A man comes marching up, his face flushed with anger. A sword hangs by his side, and his cape flies as he walks. They're sending nothing but gentlemen, he shouts at Reverend Hunt. By God, who will build the houses? Who will grow the crops? Do they think they can eat the gold and silver they're hoping to find? He spits on the ground. I know these gentlemen. They'll expect to have everything done for them. Expect it to be easy. They won't lift a finger to work. Reverend Hunt speaks calmly, lays a hand on the man's shoulder. John, there are carpenters going too, and laborers, and these boys, and more gentlemen than commoners, the man shouts. The investors of the Virginia Company were raving mad when they chose the men for this journey. Then, suddenly, he seems to notice me and Richard. Is this the boy you promised me? Which one is the fighter? Reverend Hunt nods my way. The man, who I think must be Captain John Smith, narrows his eyes at me. I narrow my eyes back at him. I have a moment to study him while he studies me. Not tall, but stocky and strong. Curly reddish-brown hair and beard, flashing green eyes. If you beat me, I'll spit in your ale, I threaten silently. Captain Smith smiles slightly, almost as if he heard my unspoken threat. Yes, he says slowly, we'll take that energy you've got for fighting and put it to some good use. He returns to Reverend Hunt. At least we'll have a good worker here. Is that what he plans for me? To make me into a workhorse? I cross my arms over my chest and scowl. Captain Smith looks about the crowd. "Where is Captain Newport?" he asks impatiently. "I want to speak with him about this gentleman problem." He marches off, leaving us behind. Reverend Hunt turns to me and Richard. "There are men here whom you must show extra respect to, you understand?" Richard and I both nod. I've never seen so many finely dressed gentlemen in one place. "Over there," Reverend Hunt points discreetly with his chin, "Sir Edward Maria Wingfield, a very high-ranking gentleman and a member of the Virginia Company. Remember who he is." I take a good look at Edward Maria Wingfield. He's got a puffed-out chest and a strut like a peacock. "Wingfield," I say to myself, imagining him with bright tail feathers and wings. I won't forget. "And there," Reverend Hunt says, "Captain Bartholomew Gosnold, captain of the Godspeed." I already have birds on my mind, so I think of a gosling with light-colored down to match Captain Gosnold's fair hair. "And him," Reverend Hunt says, "that's Captain John Ratcliffe, captain of the Discovery, the smallest ship." Captain Ratcliffe has close-set, beady eyes and a long, pointy nose. Ratcliffe, I whisper, having to bite my lip to keep from snickering. And over there is Sir Captain Christopher Newport. He's the captain of the Susan Constant and the leader of the whole expedition. Don't forget who he is. I see Captain Smith talking to a tall, dark-haired man in a red doublet. The man's right sleeve is pinned up and empty. I remember the boys at the orphanage talking about Captain Newport, how he was in a battle at sea with the Spanish and got his arm shot off. I would think that the loss of an arm would diminish a man, but I see it has not diminished Captain Newport one bit. He nods to Captain Smith, then looks over the scene around him with an air of confidence and authority, as if it were his kingdom. In fact, these 3 ships and all of the men on board are his kingdom, until he drops us colonists safely in the New World. "Now wait here," Reverend Hunt tells us. "I'm going to find out which ship we'll be on." Richard and I stand there, but we don't talk. Richard is younger than I am by a year, and a bit shorter and broader, with dark, serious eyes. We haven't said a word to each other since I knocked his tooth out. This suits me just fine. I don't need a friend. I haven't needed anyone since my mom died. Reverend Hunt returns and tells us we'll be passengers on the flagship, the Susan Constant. A breeze picks up. It will be a good day for sailing. "Get your men on board," Captain Newport orders. I feel a leap of excitement inside me. Doomed or not, the adventure is about to begin. So what are you noticing and wondering and observing and inferring? The epigraph of Chapter 3 is from Master George Percy in his journal Observations. Remember, we haven't met him yet. "The 5th of January, 1607, we anchored in the Downs, but the winds continued contrary so long that we were forced to stay there for some time, where we suffered great storms." So, the 5th of January, they anchored their ships in the Downs, which is a part of ocean near England, but the winds continued contrary. Contrary means it's not making it easy. It was too windy for so long that they were forced to stay there sometime, where they suffered great storms. So we know this chapter is going to be about them anchored in the ocean near England, and about the winds carrying on so long it's keeping them from continuing their journey, and they're going to be suffering great storms. I rub my eyes and blink in the dim light of the 'tween deck. The ship pitches and rolls. I only know it's morning because of the bit of light that peeks in around the gun ports and the closed hatch, and because of the roosters and hens down in the hold know, and they have started a racket. The 'tween deck reminds me of the root cellar at the orphanage, with its close walls and ceiling. It is one long room running almost the length of the ship, though one can hardly walk for the barrels and crates that are taking up most of the room. At first, a few of the gentlemen hung pieces of cloth to make partitions, since they thought they deserved some privacy, but those have all come down now in favor of setting up crates as card tables, barrels as sitting stools for their card games. The chickens are luckier than we are. Most days their crates are brought up on deck and they get fresh air to breathe. And the ship's cats and 2 dogs have the run of the place. So do the ship's 1,000 rats. We passengers are only allowed up to empty the slop buckets or to get the stew pots for our meals. Captain Newport says he doesn't want us getting in the sailors' way up on deck. We are all seasick and bored, and we're going absolutely no place. We have nothing but storms and winds blowing the wrong direction for weeks now, and so we sit anchored in the cold, close enough to see England's shores, but still trapped down in this hole of a 'tween deck with the stench of urine and vomit and chicken dung. The gentlemen complain constantly. They want to sail back to shore and go home. Sir Edward Maria Wingfield is the most vocal in his complaints. He is furious at Captain Smith, who keeps reminding the gentlemen that they have signed 7-year contracts with the Virginia Company, and they can't quit this voyage. I can see why Master Wingfield wants to quit. Even living on the streets was better than this. Next to me, sleeping in our bed, a straw and canvas mattress thrown over some barrels, are Richard and snot-nosed 9-year-old James. James is servant to the gentleman George Percy and afraid of everything. The men sleep 2 to a bed, but all 3 of us boys are crowded in together. There's a 4th boy, Nathaniel. He's older than I am, probably 13 or 14. It's a good thing he's on one of the other ships, or they'd have us sleeping 4 to a bed. I kick James to wake him. "Give me some room, you little worm." James groans and rolls over. He leaves a smudge of snot on the canvas. "I'm not a worm," he whines sleepily. Everyone's waking up now. I hear yawning, grunting, men relieving themselves into slop buckets. "James, bring me my wash water, now." Master Percy is not a patient man, and James has to hop up to fetch water before he even has a chance to rub the sleep out of his eyes. Richard is still sleeping. He is the soundest sleeper I have ever seen. Not even roosters crowing and men clomping right by his ear wake him. But Reverend Hunt is very ill with the seasickness and will need help. I jostle Richard hard. He groans but doesn't open his eyes. Fine, I think. Let him get a lecture on slothfulness from Reverend Hunt. James and Richard have become good friends to each other, even though James is a gentleman's son and Richard is a commoner. They are not my friends, though. I have kept my distance from them and from everyone else on board the Susan Constant. Instead of trying to decipher which of the men are to be trusted and which are not, I have made it simpler for myself. Trust no one. It's a philosophy that worked for me in the poorhouse, on the streets of London, and at the orphanage. I see no reason to change. Captain Smith has not beat me yet. He does not seem inclined to, but you never can tell. There is not much required of me aboard ship, just to bring him his wash water in the morning and empty the slop buckets we all use. There's not much for any of us to do. That is why there is so much time for the bubbling up of discontent, and today is the day it boils over. "I've had enough," Master Wingfield announces. "The food is monotonous and salty. The commoners stink, and the storms will not cease. We will sail back to London at once. Who is with me?" "Aye," several of the gentlemen call out. "We're with you. We're ready to turn back." Captain Smith stands and addresses them. Are you all cowards? He demands. And are you liars? Were you lying when you signed your contracts with the Virginia Company? I cringe. Captain Smith is especially angry today, and I know he has gone too far. I have seen how these gentlemen wield their power when they are insulted. Master Wingfield answers Captain Smith in a low growl. You have forgotten your place, Mr. Smith. They should never have sent you gentlemen on this voyage, Captain Smith nearly shouts it. You're all weak, every one of you. You know nothing about survival. Master Wingfield is livid. I think he's about to thrash Captain Smith. I would like to see a fight, but Reverend Hunt steps in. Sick as he is, Reverend Hunt calms Master Wingfield down and talks about how God wants us to bring Christianity to the New World. He somehow makes a fragile peace, somehow convinces the gentleman to just wait a little longer for an east wind. But I know there is no peace inside Master Wingfield. I know it's only a matter of time before he strikes. It will not be with his fists, as we commoners do. It will be with his power, and it will be worse than fists. Hope you added a lot to your notice and wonder chart.